do you see life, and how do you approach it, and what are you doing? What are your reactions to life? Because it's impossible to change my environment, like in like a
we all
collective.
Are on this little planet called Earth.
Yes.
And we all have to be with ourselves wherever we are.
Right.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks. We have Amy Turner with Mindset Behavioral Health. She is the owner and founder of that counseling program. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So a lot of people that go into counseling or the recovery industry career have some sort of background in recovery themselves.
Yes.
And need counseling themselves at some point in their life.
Yeah, a purpose, a why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why
did I do that?
Did you do that?
Well, I mean, I can say that I didn't get my master's degree until I was 34. I don't think I really believed in myself for a long time because of my background. But I actually had moved to New York. I was working in New York City, and I was watching people like just making things happen there. And, I thought I can do this too. And
what were they doing?
I was just seeing like models in the like Kinko's making copies of their headshots, and, just things that weren't related, but I was just like watching all of this happen. And I was like, why can't I do something like that? I can do something like that. And I don't know why that is what, clicked for me. But so I ended up moving back here. I'm from here, and I moved back here and went back to school and got my degree in psychology because I wanted to work in the prisons. And so, I moved forward. I got my degree in psychology. I realized at that point, if I was going to make any money, being a therapist, that I would have to get a master's degree, which you have to have one anyway to be licensed. But so I went on and got my master's, and I ended up not working in the prisons.
Why?
Mainly because I do a lot of prison work. I guess you could call it ministry, but it's not Christian. But there's not a lot of prisons close to here. So it was more like a logistical thing, and there's limited positions for people in my career in the prison system. So there are prisons that have over 1,000 inmates that have one therapist on staff.
Wow.
So
that's a workload.
It is. It's a lot.
Seemed like prisoners might need some counseling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the budget's not there.
Right. Yeah.
So you went into private counseling, or you went to work for a company?
I worked at a residential treatment center for a while. I had some sober living houses for a while. And then in 2016, I was actually the treatment coordinator for Washington County Drug Court. And I was driving to Bartlesville every day from Jinx. And
that's a trip.
Yeah. And I discovered this magical thing called Audible. Because I'm not like sit down and paper read books. I will, but I just started devouring books, and I actually read a book that made me quit my job and start my own business. So,
do you remember the name of the book?
Yeah, I do. It's called "You're a Badass." And it's like something like stop doubting yourself and go live an amazing life. And what I got out of that book was that there's never going to be a right time for me to step out. And so, and I knew that the job that I quit at the time, that I could go back there and work for them if it didn't work out. And I had a small child. I think my son was 2 at the time. And I'm a single mom, and it was just me and him. And so I took that leap. I just rented this little office. It was literally like a closet, no windows. And, I started advertising that I was in private practice, and people started showing up, and it was just this little room, and people would come in and they would be like, "Is this your office?" And I'm like, "Yeah, come on in." And I was there for a couple of months, and then I moved over on Utica over by St. John, and it just, I got full. And I had never planned on doing anything beyond that. I was just going to be a private, a therapist in private practice. So,
but you had an entrepreneurial spirit in you.
I guess take that step. I guess I did. Really, it was the pandemic that motivated me. So, because there was just a lot of negative energy going on at that time, and I'm of the belief that energy is energy. And so I thought, I want to use this for something positive. So I rented a bigger space and had some offices. And then, the therapists just started showing up, and we ended up outgrowing that space. I think we opened the doors, I hired an office manager in April, and by December, I had 5 therapists, including myself, and an office manager, and we had outgrown the space. So.
How many people do you have working with you now?
12.
And why do they work with you instead of opening their own practice?
So my whole reasoning behind leaving community mental health, and this is just my perception and my experience, was there was always some sort of like dysfunction, and I'm a people person, so being by myself was not my favorite thing. I really missed like the social aspect of being in a office with people.
Team setting.
Yes, thank you. And so I, my goal was to, have a place to work where, nobody was micromanaged, and it was more of just like a collaborative
effort.
Thank you. Yes. So that's really what it is. And most of the therapists that work with me have done community mental health, some of them for a really long time. And I always say, like, we did our time in community mental health, and so now we're in the private sector.
Yeah. I know a lot of doctors and maybe eye doctors or general practitioners, specialists, whatever, that or dentists that were in private practice, having their own company, that have went to work for a large conglomerate, actually have sold their practices to them. Do you enjoy having your own practice?
I do. I mean, there's definitely challenges with it, things that you don't really think about, like it's expensive. It's very expensive. And I'm not like getting rich off of this, but I do see it as like I'm helping people, I'm providing jobs for people. And so it's but like a therapist gets paid well, they're licensed. And I would say that's the hardest part about it, is like it's a lot of work for not a lot of extra, but also, I'm not having to carry like this giant caseload, like whenever I was working in, a treatment center. So
yeah, you still treat people, you still counsel people yourself?
I do, yes. Yeah. And I don't know that I'll ever stop doing that. I started doing groups recently. There's so much power in group, just like that collective conscience and people sharing with each other. It's just very powerful. And I think it's probably the best way for people to get help, specifically, with addiction, because there's such a stigma with that. And, so a lot of people feel, I know I did, I felt isolated, like there's something wrong with me. Nobody's like me. And, I had no clue that just wasn't the truth.
What's peculiar to me is people talk about drug and alcohol addiction, and they forget about all the other addictions that most people have in their lives currently, and they might not even be aware of it.
Yes.
But the alcohol and drug addiction community feels exiled or separated and condemned.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, I think because of the behaviors that come along with that, there's a lot of dishonesty. I mean, people in addiction are delusional. You know, they're doing, you know, whatever they're ingesting or whatever behavior they're doing to feel better. I mean, there is a science about it. I don't want to get way into it because I'll get off in the weeds and I won't. You know, I won't
I'll pull you back out of them.
But, you know, it has to do with dopamine, you know, like, you know, getting those dopamine hits and just like we get them off of our phone and, but it's the same thing. But people get hurt, family members, loved ones of people specifically with substance abuse, you know, it hurts their finances. It
can happen with the other addictions, but it's not as common, and it normally doesn't affect those people around them as much as drug and alcohol addiction does. Unless
it's like gambling. I mean, that's a really tough one too, and that's a huge problem in our area because there's so many casinos in Oklahoma, so I mean, we see a lot of that.
Yeah, I am an ex-gambling addict.
Oh yeah,
and I met a lady that was a addiction counselor down just outside of Oklahoma City at one of the casinos one night. And she would be up $250,000 playing blackjack. And then she would be down the same amount the next night.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does this lady do to have all of this money to blow in here? And how is she not beside herself when she's down hundreds of thousands of dollars in a night sometimes?
Yeah.
And well, a lot of times people pick careers that they might need help in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And she was a counselor, an addiction counselor.
Yeah. And a lot of gamblers, believe it or not, are addicted to losing. Yeah.
Feels good to feel bad.
I mean, I don't know that it's the chase. So whenever they're winning, they're not getting that, you know, like the dopamine hits that they get when they're losing, because then they, you know, that's what makes them continue.
Yeah, that's why you keep on pushing all in. Let's go.
Yeah. Or you win and then you stay until that's all gone and then some. So I don't know.
Never enough.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had my experience in the casino and I've just decided, and I went through the gambling training, which I don't do gambling counseling, but I did go through the training and you know, my summary of that is like, you know, it's never a win situation doing that.
Yeah, so. Never a win, so stay away.
Yeah, yeah.
What feeds you with what you do? What fills you with what you do? What is your main enjoyment?
Well, I mean, I love helping people. I love learning about people. I like to say that I'm somebody that knows a little tiny bit about a lot of things because of all the information that I've taken in from, you know, just like the biggest variety of people over the last, you know, almost 20 years. And I would say that that's my draw is, you know, I really enjoy helping people, and, you know, I want to make an impact in somebody's life. Because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the people that have made, you know, impacts in my life, you know?
Yeah. So you are fairly good at sitting down with somebody of any walk of life and having a reasonably good connection and conversation with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's putting that hat on. So, I love to talk, but, you know, in counseling, you do a lot less of that. So
a lot more listening.
A lot more listening. I have a master's degree in listening. Yes. So yes, I can do that. And, you know, and it's an art of just building a therapeutic relationship with someone, no matter what their background is, what their beliefs are. And, you know, I mean, I definitely have my own background and beliefs, but that's just, there's no place for that there.
Yeah. Can we have a little bit of fun just off the cuff here?
Oh, I don't know.
And let you take me through 5-minute counseling?
Oh.
So I'm approaching your office. You're saying, come on in, Craig.
Yes.
To my little office where I'm just starting.
Yeah. Well, what brings you here today, Craig?
Well, I've got a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Don't really like talking about it, though, because, it's something that's major in my life and I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. You don't know how to deal with it?
Yeah. Have no clue. That's why I'm here, because, if I could, I wouldn't be here asking you to help me.
So when you were growing up, did you talk about what was going on in your family?
Yeah, we did. We had a pretty open line of communication with each other. In fact, my dad was explosive with sharing sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Somebody would touch his car, and after he just waxed it, everybody wants to touch a pretty nice, shiny car. And it happened to be some of my friends, a few of them. And he wasn't okay with that. Yeah. And he let them know very strongly.
And what was your reaction to that?
Embarrassed. Didn't say anything. Couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
I was a little kid.
Yeah. So would you say that you had to tiptoe around that ever?
Not ever, always.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, never knew.
Yeah.
Never knew what the next explosive moment would be.
Right.
But I got pretty good with getting along with a lot of people by becoming more passive and gauging their emotional level and that through that.
Yeah.
But still, there are some scars from that. I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. So, do you think that may be related to why you have a hard time talking about whatever you came to talk about today?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Never really thought about it.
Mm.
But as I said earlier on the show, I did have a problem with that gambling.
Yeah.
No more.
Right.
No more problem with that. But since we're playing role play here, we'll play like it was still a thing in my life.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to say it other than, I don't know how to stay away from the casinos.
Yeah.
I win sometimes a considerable amount of money for the amount of money that I bring. And then the next time that I know, my bank account's empty.
Mm. So what is it about that you don't like?
Who likes to lose all their money? Who likes to not know how they're going to put fuel in their vehicle when they're making, well over 6 figures a year?
Right. But how do you feel about yourself whenever you're doing that?
Well, I can tell you how I feel more than I can tell you how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
There's a roller coaster. And when we kick it into gear and it's really flowing, it's like top of the world. Nobody can lose. Just watch me. I know how to play this game.
Right.
And it was blackjack. And the next thing that I know, cards aren't falling the way that I want them to fall. And there's nothing I can do about it because I'm losing and I can't stop while I'm losing.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question that I asked you. What does it make you believe about yourself?
Well, that I'm not who I think that I am if I'm not in there. That I'm out of control and a loser instead of a successful business person that's helping the community.
And is that the truth?
Depends on what truth you're looking at.
Yeah.
If I'm in there, that's the truth about who that is. And if I've got my other hat on, then I'm loving people and helping them, and having a good time with my team. But it's not the way it is when I walk into that casino.
Yeah. So part of you is drawn to that.
And I don't know why. I don't know why I can't leave that alone.
Yeah. Well, that's something that we can work on together if you want to.
I would love that. I need help.
You do.
Thanks. That was kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So is that kind of the way that it flows sometimes? Everybody's different?
It depends. So, the funniest thing about being a therapist is whenever people come in and they say, I just don't have anything to talk about today. And then they end up talking the entire time. So it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do Tulsa Talks because I've been a listener all of my life.
Yeah.
My wife learned things about her family after we'd been married for a few years, and I finally sat down and have a conversation with them that she didn't know, and she was 30 years old.
Yeah.
Her brother, her mom, her dad, her grandparents. Like, just tell me. So how do you help people open up? I know how I do it.
Well, I mean, it's really about building the relationship. And, that's something that I've learned from doing groups. Like, it doesn't even really matter like what curriculum you're going over. Really, it just depends on, the connection that I make with the clients. I'll speak for myself. And so that's the most important part is developing that relationship. Because if you're going to talk to somebody about your personal stuff that you've never talked to anyone else about, you're going to want to trust that person.
Yeah, yeah. I pick on people sometimes because I have a different answer.
Okay.
Do you make the relationship or do you allow them to have it?
That's a good question. I think that it's both. So, that's what I'm trained to do is to meet people where they are and, and really just love them like where they are and, create a safe space for them to open up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I may be the only person that they have ever talked to about their personal stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe the only person that they talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are more chatty than others.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are more open book than others. How hard is it sometimes, since you are a counselor and they're coming to you and they want your help?
Yes.
But let me say it this way. When I go to the doctor, it's very rare and I don't like taking drugs, any pharmaceuticals at all.
Right.
That's just my stance.
Yeah.
God's made me healthy. I do what I can to keep myself healthy. And if I need pharmaceuticals, it's the last resort.
Right.
So sometimes, and my mother-in-law was the same way. She was dementia. I'm sick. I want to go to the doctor. I don't want to take the medicine.
Yeah.
So people come to you and they say, I need your help. You're like, okay, yeah, try to help you all I can.
Yeah.
And then they don't share.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that that's really a big obstacle, the sharing part. It's the, like taking what is learned or absorbed in the session and then applying it in life. Sometimes that happens immediately. And sometimes people aren't willing to, walk out of that room and start doing things differently moving forward, because we have to change for our life to change. And a lot of times, it's like, where do you start with that?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? And so that's what we're discovering in those rooms is like, how do you see life and how do you approach it? And, what are you doing? What are your reactions to life? Because it's impossible to change my environment, like in like a
we all
collective.
Are on this little planet called Earth.
Yes.
And we all have to be with ourselves wherever we are.
Right. Yeah. So in therapy, we learn about ourselves so we can go out and, experience life in a different way.
Yeah. So similar. I go to the doctor. I ask them for help. They give me a prescription.
Right.
I don't take the prescription. They've done nothing. People come to you. Right. They ask for help. You share with them how you think that they might be able to apply certain things into their life. They don't take that and move forward with it. They've not taken the prescription.
Well,
not that it's a prescription.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but I have to say that there's something that's going on in there. And I guess I can share my experience with this is, I went to therapy years ago and it just felt like too much. But I did get something out of it. I just wasn't ready to walk through my own like trauma. And so, but years later, I was ready. And so I think it's like, okay, well, I've pinpointed like what I need to do, but whether or not I'm willing to like walk through that, that's just a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So there's, what do they call that? Topical ointments.
Right. Yes.
That might be where we can plug certain things or thoughts onto mask.
Yes.
The deep disease.
Or planting seeds is what we call it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, those planting seeds might not even be the right seeds, but might engage somebody later to be able to get to the root of what that cause is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, whenever we're talking about life experiences, because when we're children, we are molded by our environment. And so, the people around us heavily influence, us, and our brain develops in that particular way. And so, if I grow up and I'm in fear all the time, then, I'm probably going to be an anxious adult. So, and sometimes going back and like reprocessing some old memories can help alleviate my present anxiety, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
So maybe you do have the key to the right door, but you're not willing or able to open it yet because you can't dive that deep into it.
And sometimes our feelings is hard, especially whenever we're used to disassociating or just, not paying attention to what's going on. And that's a big part of therapy too, is asking people how they feel, what they believe about themselves. And sometimes we just have like a committee going on. We're not even paying attention to life. It's just like blowing through life and not paying attention. And the goal here is to like slow down and identify, what am I doing? What am I thinking? And why am I doing this?
Yeah. I suppose let me start off again. I have never been a counselor. I'm not a counselor, but I do play one in the gym sometimes. And I'm sure that you guys have more of an emotional type thing going on in your clinic or office than I experience in everyday life. Right. What is the spectrum of emotions that are displayed? Well,
I mean, that is a spectrum, I guess, is a really great way to describe that because, typically when people show up on my couch, they're having a crisis. So, and to me, that's like the best, because that, just like we were talking about before, like whenever hard things happen, then we're motivated to do things differently. And, like sometimes that veil comes off of our eyes and we can see things need to change. And so, I guess it depends on it could be deep grief or sadness. It could be anger that they're dealing with, depression. A lot of people have depression whenever, their life circumstances aren't the way that they wanted them to be or, and then anxiety, afraid.
So counseling helps people with their emotional well-being by getting to a root cause of something. Is that kind of the way that it goes?
That's a part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me the rest of it.
I think that, identifying a root cause is, it can be the foundation of, making a shift. But I don't know. I'm going to use EMDR for an example because that is a type of therapy that I do. And
what is EMDR?
It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so it's we do a lot of resourcing with our clients before we get into the EMDR. Mainly like grounding exercises, making sure they're not going to disassociate, giving them some tools to, to walk through these hard things. And so, but whenever you identify, I call it like an activating event, a memory.
Yeah, trigger.
can be a trigger. Then, reprocessing the old memory with some bilateral stimulation.
How many people do you find that don't know that old memory? Like,
I think a lot.
Or they maybe like filed down where you're not getting to the original point.
Right. Well, if it's like some big event, then that would be obvious. But I've seen just little small things come up for people whenever we do. So that's bilateral stimulation. Originally it was eye movements. Some people still use that. I use these little paddles, I call them buzzies, and they just buzz back and forth. And so something about that, bilateral stimulation helps you reprocess old memories, and you can rewrite your emotions around your old experiences. So, I really went off on a tangent there, but yeah, so that's part of it, like having the old memory. But then, it's really like about applying, just different ways to live, different principles, like putting a puzzle together, right? So, going to therapy, like nutrition is really important for your mental health. Moving your body is very important. Meditation is amazing. I was actually just listening to a podcast on the way here about meditation, and it's a magical thing. And so,
what do you do? I suppose you practice these things yourself.
Well, yeah.
What do you do in your meditation? Do you try to not think of anything, or do you just get some abstract piece to think about?
Trying, like, not thinking about anything is impossible. I think it's just getting quiet. Slowing down my mind, trying to focus on one particular thought instead of, having that committee go on. And I can tell you, I've been practicing it for many years. And, I would say, like, based on what I knew from the beginning, I would say today that I'm not very good at it, but I also know that that's really just like a journey and not a destination point. It's just the fact that, practicing it. I used to be a very anxious person, not so much anymore. I had pretty debilitating anxiety when I first got sober. I had panic attacks and I had a hard time getting out of the house. And a lot of that was my beliefs about myself. But I started incorporating meditation into my morning routine, and along with prayer, because I do believe in a higher power, and slowly that began to shift. And it's been many years now, so I'm not saying I don't ever feel anxious, but it's not my baseline.
Yeah. Do you find personal growth in addition to fulfillment with what you do? Oh,
well, let me tell you, if you want to be if you want to be like toes to the fire, personal growth, then become a therapist, because, it really is a challenge to, continually stay on top of the new, because there's just so much new. Even from when I graduated, there's so much new ways to look at things, so much science that, they're doing a lot of research on the brain. And I am definitely not an expert in that, but I'm very curious about it. And I just devour books and podcasts about neuroscience of the brain. So yeah, it's like I said, Audible changed my life. And I don't know if it's like an addiction or, but I just constantly.
Sure it is.
I'm constantly
anything that you're focused in ingesting
information. And, but I also, learn things that I can apply in my work.
Yeah. I am not a college educated counselor, but it appears to me that addictions can be healthy, because we can grow. We can be addicted to growth, which includes balance.
Right.
So to me, we can absolutely be goal-oriented, growth-focused, becoming who we should be maybe more rapidly.
Right.
With intentional walk, which is a little hazy on the addiction, maybe, but it's still that similar focus. I've seen a lot of people that are ex-addicts, and tell me if I'm wrong, but most of the time they trade an addiction for another one, and then they find balance.
It does.
If they find balance.
Yeah. So, but I think going back to what you said, it's like, I think it's how you define addiction. You know, if you want to do like the textbook addiction, it's like, you know, a repetitive behavior, you know, that you're doing to change the way you feel, and there's negative consequences, and you can't stop doing it.
Yeah. Why? I don't understand why there has to be negative consequences.
Well, that's what makes it the addiction, right? So you think about like athletes, and not all of them, but, you know, the ones that are, you know, just like, that's all they're focused on. You know, they may be lacking in personal relationships. So it does affect their life whenever, you know, somebody is so driven to, you know, to do this one thing.
Yeah. When they stop being an athlete, then they didn't take time to adjust their life before they do that. It might be traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, it might be traumatic for their family, you know. I guess the reason why I even brought that up was because of a book that I read, but, you know, how these athletes that are outliers, they don't have like good personal relationships because they're good at that one thing, you know, they're focused on that one thing. And so, you know, that in itself could be defined as an addiction because it's you know, there are consequences from that and they are negative. Now they get a lot of positive out of it too.
So there's a difference in hyper-focused and addicted to something, addiction, potentially.
Yeah, I would say so.
What is one thing that you would, or you have learned through your journey that would be beneficial for me and other people to see or hear?
Well, I mean, I know you have a lot of experience with people in the recovery community, but I think, you know, whenever I was going through my little checklist, it was like, oh, I'm going to, you know, I want to do the stigma because it's like, you know, there's such a big stigma with addiction. And the great news about that is there are so many resources today to get help, and which wasn't the case whenever I got sober many moons ago. And but there, you know, there's just so much help out there. And I think that, you know, like society as a whole has made a shift towards, you know, decreasing the stigma around addiction and mental health.
Yeah, a lot of people, you know, buy into mental health real strongly these days and self-care.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing to buy into.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, you know, talk to people. Even if you're a family member of somebody that has addiction, you're not alone. There are lots of people. There are a lot of people here in Tulsa. The recovery community is vibrant and alive and amazing in Tulsa. There's so many people in recovery, and that could be on either side. You know, somebody that loves somebody that has addiction or somebody that actually has it.
Yeah. There is an amazing community in Tulsa for the recovery process, and we're fortunate to have a relationship with many people at many facilities and personal relationships with people that have went to prison because of their addiction or because of their actions associated with addiction. And they're some of the best people I've ever met.
Oh, yeah. Is this where I confess that I've been to prison?
Some of the people that the outcast that have that history can be very much more alive and more grounded, even if they're not financially successful.
Yeah.
Than those people that live in those empty-souled mansions.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak from experience in that, because I think, my senior year of high school, I was in prison. I went to prison. And I think having, and I went for a couple years. And so, having that experience, like working through all of that shame and the guilt, and then, translating that into today, I think that, for me personally, taking risks, not like, with the law, but like just taking personal risks aren't as difficult. Because it's like, I already have, lived on that side of the tracks, and I know what that's like. And it's not a place that I want to go back to. And I know that there are many, many things that I have to do on a regular basis, so, a lot of them on a daily basis to not go back there. But also, I have a great vision for, moving forward because of that. So, I think that, one of my things is like, well, if it doesn't work out, then I can always go back to doing what I was doing before. And I had mentioned that earlier. So, that's been with my career. I
say that my life hits kind of a little bit of a plateau, if you would. And then I'm ready to look for where that ripcord is again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where are we going to take off? I've bought into life as a great adventure.
Yeah.
And that background that I have in owning a regional presence business, as well as the risk, high risk acceptance, very low risk aversion, is something that I've had since I was born.
Yeah.
And so I'm the guy that is, let's get it on. Let's get to development, get a plateau, find yourself stable. Where's the next ripcord?
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that I was that way, but I guess I am, because that happened to me too.
Yeah, let's get it.
It's like, well, okay, I did this, so what's next?
Yeah. So, how do we take this to the next level? How do we take this to the next level?
Yeah.
And my next level is, how much can I connect with people to connect people to people, so that we might all live a better life?
Yeah. People connection is it's the most incredible thing. I would say that most of the business that comes through my office is word of mouth, and it's just from developing relationships with people, and a lot of that I attribute to, being single whenever my kid was little and going to sports. And I was like talking to all the parents, but everybody else was there with their spouse or significant other. And I'm there by myself. So I'm talking to every single one of them.
You're a social butterfly. If you were married or not, you would be doing that.
Yeah. Well, I do. I don't think as much.
I do. Really? My wife's with me.
Yeah.
And I'm introducing her to everybody around us.
Yeah, maybe.
So she's on joint adventure with me. She's quiet.
Yeah.
And she listens, and she really pays attention to people's movement, actions. And as a broad, just the mass of people.
Right.
And I'm more tuned into, who am I meeting? This person.
Yeah.
Individually. And I think, well, let me say it this way. People tell me, and they may have told you this too, they tell me that I am easy to talk to, and that they have been in more intimate relationships with me. I say relationships, conversations with me within 5 minutes than they've been with many other people in their entire life.
Yeah.
Is that how you social butterfly too?
Yeah.
Allow people to share?
I've learned, I don't tell people what I do for a living out in public unless they're pressing me about it, because then it can open up a whole oh, well, let me tell you about this. And, but I think that, being in a fellowship for so long, has taught me how to develop relationships with people, not to be afraid to introduce myself to people. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that just having that presence is inviting for people. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I can totally shut that off too. So, and it's something that I had to learn to shut off, because I was, like I said, I had so much shame and guilt from my past that, when I was around people, it wasn't about them. It was about the way I felt about myself, but I wasn't, making myself available for relationships. So, and not even knowing. That's just from getting feedback from people over the years, Yeah.
It's amazing how others can see you better than you can see yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And that's the Johari window.
That's why counseling exists, is because you guys help people see into themselves better than they can help themselves.
Yeah.
See that?
Mm-hmm. Well, anyone on the outside can see better than we can see ourselves.
Yes.
So, yeah. But the training and everything's great experience.
Thanks for coming and talking today.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?